Okay, we're going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Floyd, Frazier, Cost, Bub, and Marmee. First item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing and directing the auditor of the City of Newark to pay bills on behalf of the Division of Police pursuant to Section 5705.41D, then and now certification, and declaring an emergency.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. This involves crash reconstruction software in the Division of Police. I believe there was an unavoidable miscommunication about 10 months ago at the vendor. The long and short of it was we turned the software on, we owe them the money. I don't think it's, I'm not trying to point fingers, but I believe we didn't miscommunicate, but we would ask your consideration so we could pay this bill.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Floyd. Any questions or discussion?
I have one, Chair. As far as what was the miscommunication previously, what's the agreement now?
Well, we had everything in writing, and I'm hesitating to be too critical. In the original deal, we said there's this amount of money is left over. Don't we owe you? No, we're fine. 10 months later, we get everything hooked up and turn it on, and here's the invoice. We call them, oh, sorry, you owed us that after all. We've already reappropriated and used those monies elsewhere, hence we had to pay it so we could use it.
Okay. So no more unexpected bills?
I don't believe so for a second, Mark. Again, I'm not trying to be critical of anyone, but it's a fair question. I don't like those kind of, hey, what happened moments. But I've looked into this, and it's just one of those things that has happened, and we thought we had a clear communication. It was too good to be true 10 months ago.
The stark reality.
So, Mr. Chair, don't we have several of those every once in a while that are then and now that come up?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $6,790.73.
This appropriation is for the Division of Parks for the time spent for the summer youth program.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Cost. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $10,000.
When you add those up, it's 20.
Right. But on the legislation it says 10, so maybe that can be explained.
The first thank you, Mr. Chair. The first $10,000 comes from checks from insurance companies because people run into our guardrails here in the city, and that's not, we want to put that into professional services. The second $10,000 is we sell the city of Heath at times hot emulsion and number 8 stone, and we want to put that back into the money back in the street maintenance supply account, being a total of $20,000.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. Motion by Bob, second by Floyd. On the legislation, though, it's indicating only 10,000. So we will have to wait a minute. Let's check something. Yeah, it's only saying 10,000, so we have to amend Section 2, the total portion, to say $20,000. Okay. So we got a motion and a second on the amended portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed. The amended is 5-0. Now I'm going to open it up for questions or discussion on the 20,000. Any questions or discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $2,000, and the first one is from the budget stabilization fund.
I guess that'll be me. Basically, we're out of money to publish the codified ordinances that we publish all the time. We had, between that and the ordinances we have to publish from the state, we used all the money we had budgeted from last year because for some reason there seems to be more this year. So we have nowhere else in our budget to take it from.
Questions?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion by Floyd, second by Koss. Further questions or discussion? Did we look elsewhere across the city and set budget stabilization?
We asked the mayor if we could get something from his budget, and the answer was no. So that's as far as I went.
I find it hard to believe we can't find $2,000 anywhere but the budget stabilization.
I could probably agree with you.
I mean, that's supposed to be, it's not supposed to be for things that are just small little items that, I know this was unexpected. We did budget the same as last year, you're saying?
Yes. And actually, Autumn said we used it almost twice as much right now.
And is this all that's going to be needed for the year?
Yeah.
Is this an estimate or an actual?
This is an estimate to take us through to summer. I think she estimated about $19.50.
Okay, and how much do we owe now and how much do we usually keep in that account?
We now don't owe anything, but we have no money left in the account.
Okay. I'm just going to share with the committee, I'm not comfortable with using the budget stabilization for something like this. When push comes to shove at the end of the year, we shut down the P cards, we do different things to try to save small amounts of money like this. We don't owe anything right now. We've asked the fire chief to just bring us items that are needed as they come along. I mean, I would almost feel the same with this personally. I'm just trying to tell folks my opinion. Because, if we owe a $500 bill or a $200 bill, I would rather go for that amount
Sure.
than to take $2,000 from the budget stabilization just to carry that over into next year in the regular fund. Yes.
Donna, are you okay if we do then and now? Are you comfortable with that so we can stay that across the board?
Yeah, I'm just a messenger on this one.
Okay.
I understand.
Yeah.
And
So, sure.
I mean, I'm trying to be fair.
I get you.
We tell the fire chief, just because it's 2,000 versus,
Sure.
200,000 or however much, it's the same. It's not. but
And this is
it's-
something we're required to do, so we
Right.
have to do it when it
Exactly. And when push comes to shove, we're going to find the money, or we have to.
comes. Right.
So that's just my opinion, but the rest of the committee can also vote.
How do the bills come in? Is it like $50 at a time, $100 at a time?
Most of that is for the codified ordinances. I think it comes in chunks at a time, big chunks. But then again, we're paid up to right now, so as we go on.
Right.
it'll
So
come
if we
in
don't
probably-
pass any resolution for the rest of the year will be okay.
That's true. If we don't pass anything for the rest of the year and the state doesn't pass anything, we won't need the money. You might want to rethink that.
What about this one?
I'm okay with that.
You won't get a lot of argument from me on that either.
I'm okay with that as well. I mean, that might also give some more time to maybe find that within what we already have, so I guess.
Somebody has a little more push with the mayor than me and can twist his arm a little bit, maybe we can find it in his budget somewhere.
And it's not just even the mayor's budget.
Or
I mean, across the lines, there could be something.
In our budget, we have council salaries, we have Autumn's salary, and we have pretty much this, and her insurance, and that's about it, so we don't have a lot of fluff.
We don't have the auditor here this evening, do we?
I don't think so.
Because there is, I'm pretty sure there's even some in the unappropriated balance when we got the money from, I'm drawing blank where we got the big chunk. We've moved some of it over into paving,
Could be.
but I think there's unappropriated balance right now. I'd rather it come from there, budget stabilization.
I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. All right, well, we do have a motion on the floor in a second, so everybody vote. You're either going to vote yes to send this on a full council. If you're not in support, of course, no. It'll just die and the rest of it will, and they could always bring it back or we can figure out what to do later. But because there is a motion on the floor, it's not going to die from a lack of motion. We already did that. So with that, any further discussion or questions from anyone in the audience? All those in favor of passing this on to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Motion fails 3-2, or 2-3, however you want to say it.
Okay.
All right.
So you want to do the then and now, would probably be the best, your best suggestion as it comes.
Or look for
Or find-
somewhere else in
find
the
it
budget.
somewhere
I
else.
mean, did we even ask about unappropriated balance versus budget stabilization?
I did not. Once
Okay.
again, I'm the messenger on this one. I thought the mayor was going to do this one.
Right. Well, and I'll be happy to ask him, but
No,
I know
I'll
there's an unappropriated balance.
I'll find out. Thanks.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is it's $2,000. Since we didn't do the first one, this one is almost a moot point, but I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion, it is on the table. All right, that one will die from a lack of motion. And the final one is a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit applications to the Ohio Department of Environmental Protection Agency for fiscal year 2016 diesel emissions reduction grant program for equipment replacement, repower, retrofit, and anti-idle.
This is a grant opportunity that the service department would like to explore. It has a match, minimum 20,000 or 20% match. Scoring improves if the match is increased. So we are going to make an attempt at this grant.
Second.
I have a motion by Cost, second by Floyd. Questions or discussion?
So we, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
are we targeting the 20% match, or is that where,
Well, the grant requires a minimum 20%.
we're not going above that though?
No, we should go above that because that will improve the scoring.
Okay. So do we know how far above we want to do, or is that?
That hasn't been determined yet.
Okay.
So the $12,000 is the amount that we're asking for?
Oh, no, it's 12 million.
Or 12
statewide.
million is what's available.
Correct.
We request, so if we end up with 100,000, we'll match 20, or 20%. 20,000 would be from us.
That would be the minimum we could match. We could
Right.
match higher.
Okay, so,
And that would help us in the scoring to
In our
have
scoring.
higher than 20%.
Okay.
The minimum is 20%.
okay. Well, with this legislation, we're voting a 20% match. So will we put in the application that we'll be willing to go higher?
Oh, we can do that, yes, at minimum 20%. But I can put in more in the application, yes. It says in the legislation, with the local match being a minimum of 20%.
Okay.
So,
So, and as far as from the administration, where are they saying our match is going to come from? Capital improvements?
yes. Yes.
Okay. I guess one of the questions I have is how much are we willing to put our neck out there for as far as a dollar amount on
Well,
capital improvements?
See, that hasn't been determined. It's based on the vehicles that the street department is currently exploring they would like to replace. This is a highly competitive grant. I mean, you're dealing with railroad that may be competing for these dollars. And I just think it's a good idea because we've never pursued a grant for these large capital improvements such as this. And if we go for a little bit higher than the 20%, we'll score a little bit better. And I think it's a worthwhile investment on behalf of the city to pursue if we're fortunate enough to get the grant, because they're going to be picking up the bulk of the tab, whether it's 80% or 75 or 70%. I think it's worth us exploring that. Now, if the administration does not want to, if we are awarded the grant and you don't want to do that, then we do not need to accept the grant if the economic conditions dictate that it's not possible. But I do think we should give it a shot and see how we fare.
All right. Any further questions or discussion?
Make a motion.
Second.
We already have
Yeah.
Austin Floyd as a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
just want to say, it strikes me that if we've got a chance to get something, possibly $100,000, we can certainly use it. And at that point, as she said, we can reevaluate where we stand financially and whether we can afford to accept it.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we weren't tied to it, and you clarified that, and I appreciate that, because we don't know what our capital improvements is going to look like next year. So if we're awarded this grant and it says, well, we need a $100,000 match, and we're like, well, we got $2.10. So that's where I'm coming.
And that's typically with the grants, you're always looking down the road with them. But if we don't try, we'll never know.
Right.
So.
And I appreciate that, and that makes good sense. We're not tied to it.
Right.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And that concludes the Finance Committee, and we were glad that Mr. Frazier was on time this evening. So next up is, I believe, Service.
Okay, we'll call the Service Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Rath, Cost, Frazier, Floyd, and Bub. Up first, we'll discuss Ordinance 16-33, changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described to as 320 North Vernon Avenue, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of RL, Single Family Residence Low Density District, to AD, Agricultural Zoning District. Who is to speak on 16-33? And are we actually speaking on this? Because this is not in my agenda, now that I mentioned. Oh, wait a second, scratch that. Yes, it is. It's not in the Finance Committee agenda, but it is in my agenda. Got the third page.
And Mr. Chair, as you're aware, the zoning change is a process. This is just the beginning of that change, and as this moves along a little bit further, it'll end up in Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will take a look at it, and we'll send council a recommendation back.
Okay.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Floyd, seconded by Bob. Any questions from the committee members? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of forwarding this on, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And we'll move on. We'll vote 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Up next is Resolution 16-74, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service of the City of Newark, Ohio, to enter into contract without competitive bidding for the repair of a heat exchanger system for the anaerobic digesters at the wastewater treatment plant and declared an emergency.
Yeah, this is, as you may or may not know, here recently, we were up here getting permission to bid to design a new anaerobic digestion system for the wastewater treatment plants. Part of the reason we were doing that was a lot of the equipment was getting to a point of failure, and unfortunately our boilers, there's 2 boilers in this system. Basically, an anaerobic digester, we have to heat the material up to a certain temperature for this process to work. We have 2 boilers. One has failed, and we just can't repair it anymore, which was one of the reasons why we were redesigning the system. As we're in the middle of redesigning the system, it's kind of difficult for us to establish another bid for a boiler that's going to fit into somebody else that's we're designing something else. And 2 reasons for what we're doing is, number one, middle of the summer, it's nice and hot out. We can run the system with 1 boiler. Okay, it's not the greatest situation in the world, but we can operate it. Come the end of September, beginning of October, that's going to be a problem for us. And if our digesters go bad, we have to haul that material to a landfill. It becomes a very expensive cost to us to do that. So we kind of need to get this system in place and get going. So we're working with our current design engineers to put in a system that's going to work with the new design system. And but we need to. We just don't have time to bid these. So we've gotten 3 bids we've gotten 3 prices, I'll say, on the equipment we think we can put in there that will work with the new design system. And we're somewhere between $100,000 to $175,000. We're going to probably go with the $100,000 piece of equipment. But we're asking permission to waive the bidding in this case so that we can get this system purchased and installed in a pretty quick manner. There's about a 6-week lead time to get the equipment here. So by the time we get people to install it, you can kind of do the math. We're going to be well into October, November just by doing it right now. If I got to add design and put some bid specs together, that's another month or 2 onto that, and I'm going to be in a problem. And so that's kind of where we're at. So we're kind of hoping to avoid the situation, but that's where we're at. So
Make a motion.
Motion by Bob. Seconded by Frazier. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on to council signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll be moving on 5-0. Thank you. And you said you do need an emergency clause on this, correct?
yes, I think I put that on the legislation.
Thank you. Up next is Resolution 16-76, authorizing the conveyance of certain real property now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio to Newark Development Partners and as its agent for industrial, commercial, distribution, and research development.
Thank you,
Mr. Rhodes,
Mr. Chair. As this committee will remember, a couple months back, we came with an amended agreement with the Newark Development Partners that allows us to transfer surplus property. Over the next coming months, I will continue to do this. This is property that's not needed by the city. We're paying property taxes on it, and we're trying to effort it to get it back out into redevelopment, and we're trying to get it back out into properties that pay tax.
Good.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Motion by Floyd. Seconded by Cost. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Resolution number 16-77, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to accept bids and sell certain surplus personal property now owned by the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring that such property is no longer needed for any municipal purposes and declaring an emergency. Mr. Rhodes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've got Exhibit A attached there too. We're again going to have a lot at the impound sale, at the impound lot, or sale at the impound lot. And we ask it be an emergency so we can hit all the legally mandated timelines for public notification.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Bob. Seconded by Floyd. Did we just do this 2 months ago?
We did.
How did we get another 104 vehicles in 2 months?
We get a lot of cars in there. You know, if we can do it, we'll do a third one this year. This will put us right on the budget. You know, when we budget each year, we have to give an estimate of what we think we'll bring in at the impound lot, and with this sale, we should be a little bit ahead of our budget. So if I can get a third sale in, then we'll really be ahead of our budget.
Awesome. Happy to see you put that back in capital improvements.
There you go. And you have the authority to direct that if I ask for the reappropriation.
All right, any questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign.
Thank you.
That passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And finally, resolution number 16-80 for the project that consists of resurfacing of State Route 13 and related work lying within the city of Newark and declaring an emergency.
Yes, sir. This is State Route 13 from the southern corp limit on up into town here to Locust Street, actually. And this work is planned for next construction season, but ODOT wishes to get the project out to bid, and they are requesting that the approved legislation be back to them by September 16th, along with the our $116,904 check. And in order to do that, I believe we've placed the emergency clause on here, if we could get that passed at the next council meeting.
Motion by Floyd.
Second.
Seconded by Frazier. Any question from committee members? Ms. Floyd.
Brian, this will tie into then the bridge and the
Yes.
work they're doing? Okay.
Yes.
So that should be nice at that point.
Frazier.
The license plate permissive tax fund, do we have $116,000 in there, and do we know what that current fund balance is?
I don't know what the balance is. It's north of this number, so yes, we can cover this. I don't know what the exact number is.
And then we won't have to pay anything in 2017, right, once we get that checked off?
Correct. Not for this project.
Any other questions from the committee? Questions from the audience?
I got one good question. My name is William Butcher, 263 Union Street. My street, Union Street, has not been paved not for a long time. I know when Union Street's going to get paved, and a lot of my neighbors been complaining about it, and they like to know when Union Street's going to get paved.
We'll work on that for you, William, but that has nothing to do with this legislation, so I don't know the answer to that question right now. Do you, off the tip of your tongue, happen to have any information on Union Street?
It's been paved within the last 7 or 8 years. It's not on the schedule for any paving at this point, so.
Good. Nice potholes. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0.
Thank you.
And that concludes our service committee meeting. Thank you, Ms. Moorhead. I appreciate your time. Up next will be Economic Development Committee meeting.
We'll call this meeting of the Economic Development Committee to order. Members present are Mr. Johnson, Mr. Frazier, Mr. Rath, Mr. Cost, and myself. We have one piece of legislation to consider ordinance number 1682, a resolution in support of the application for an Ohio Historic Preservation Tax Credit award for the rehabilitation of the real property located and known as 112 West Main Street, North Ohio, and declare an emergency. I see Director Rhodes is at the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, this was an old school, and this property has went twice before for tax credits, and twice before has been declined. The owner working with the state another resolution of support, and within this support, it also talks about a community reinvestment area, CRA, of support for that, which that currently is. We have 4 locations in Newark of community reinvestment areas, but by council stating that, yes, they still support it, we believe this time this project will be successful for a tax credit award, and we can get some rehabilitation to that building that's currently not in service.
Thank you, Director Rhodes. We have a motion by Mr. Cost. Second by Mr. Johnson. I'm just curious, with this being the 3rd time, what would be different from this proposal versus the other 2?
When you don't receive tax credits, and I'm not talking 1,000-foot level, there's always an opportunity to come back and say, what was wrong with my application? And the reality of the matter is the tax credit program is very, very, very competitive. And this particular project just missed getting tax credits last time. They believe this being the 3rd time around, it'll get for tax credits. So to come back to your original question, the competitive nature of these credits to make them available.
And then can you explain the need for the emergency clause in this?
Just to hit timelines needed to be able to put in the application for tax credits for this next upcoming round. Just timelines.
Thank you, Director Rhodes. And Mr. Frazier.
This is West Main Intermediate, right?
Yes.
So has this project been going on for 3 years, and is there a scheduled completion date?
No, it hasn't officially kicked off. Money is being spent by the private individual, yes, to have drawings, plans, and get the project ready, although it hasn't been kicked off yet for development. Hopefully with the award of tax credits, the development will be kicked off.
Gotcha. Any other questions from the committee? Questions from the audience? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor move this on to full council, signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Director Rhodes.
Thank you.
And that adjourns the Economic Development Committee. Next is capital improvements.
We'll call Capital Improvements Committee to order. Members present are Frazier, Coletta, Rath, Hall, and Johnson. This is for resolution number 1675, authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service for the City of Newark to enter into a lease agreement with Park National Bank for the lease purchase of 1 medic unit for the Division of Fire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the committee is aware of, in the EMS legislation, there's a certain percentage that is appropriated or allotted for lease payments for medic units. The term lease payment is a little, it's an accounting term. We lease them, and at the end of the term, we own them. That allows us to more efficiently purchase these vehicles. So what we do is we put it on a spreadsheet. We work with the fire department on when we think we're going to need another medic. And then once we have your approval, we'll go out and we'll enter into an agreement to build a medic. It takes about 6 months to build this medic, sometimes a little longer. And then at that point, we will bond the money, and then we make our first payment a year later. So to answer your question on the spreadsheet, we've got 2 medics that we went in and bought 4 years ago, and I make my 5th payment next year. That payment will go away, which will free up the funds out of the legislated cash flow model to pay for this next medic. There's a little difference with this medic. He'll be happy to talk to you about it, but there's some things built in for transporting some larger patients. So.
Oh, okay. Yes, quite simply, it's going to meet a demand that's becoming more frequent. As a general population, we're not getting smaller, we're getting bigger. And our medics have not changed in design. Now they're starting to change in design to accommodate people that are larger and heavier. And they have to be because the current design has limits. And we're pushing those limits, both in terms of function and in terms of patient comfort. So we just can't, we're trying to get a larger person onto the size cots we have now. Is A, it can push the limits of function, and B, it's really uncomfortable for the person on there. We're trying to put too much in too little space. So there's a little bit of an additional cost that comes along with that, but the added functionality is going to be something that's, we need it. We end up calling specialized people from private ambulance companies to come that have this equipment because we can't do it ourselves.
Mr. Chair. You can still accommodate smaller people, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's much easier to scale down
Okay.
than it is to scale up.
And then where do you plan on putting this medic unit once you get it?
Well, what we'd have to do is look and see where the highest demand for, it's called a bariatric unit, where the demand would be for the bariatric calls. I'm not quite sure of that. So I would guess we'd put it in the spot wherever the most calls are. Whether that's in the West End, I don't know, North End. Like I said, we'd have to look at it over a couple years' time. Where's the bulk of those calls?
And
I mean, statistically, downtown takes 48% of the runs.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is if you just look at call volume.
Right, but that, I don't know if that's necessarily tied with the amount of bariatric runs.
And do you track bariatric?
Yes, we do. Well, it's easy because we can't take care of them ourselves.
So it's whoever you call?
Yes, we can track when we call in other mutual aid, and we can specify which mutual aid that is. Say, the ambulance company, the private ambulance company in town, we can search for them, and then we'll have a number.
So this is our first bariatric unit?
That is correct. And what it does, it also not only accommodates them, but it has a lifting system so that the people lifting the cot don't actually have to lift it. It's mechanically lifted. So we push some buttons, and there's all kind of fail-safes and backups and manual things that go along with it for redundancy. But it takes the stress off people lifting too.
What is the current weight limit for our units versus the bariatric unit? Is it like 600 pound range?
I believe it's about 600 pounds. But again, you can't, there's not enough physical space to put, because, I mean, vertically you could put it, but people aren't built that way. I mean, when we are larger, we go wider, not height-wise necessarily. So we could probably, the cot could be pushed to its limit, but again, it's very uncomfortable for the person that's on there.
And as far as the chassis, I know that we use kind of a different chassis now for a lot of the new medic units in order to easily maintain them. Are we looking at the same?
Same.
This as well?
Yep. Same manufacturer, same style, et cetera, et cetera.
Mr. Chair? Yes. I'd just like to ask one question.
Sure.
Have there been any instances of a firefighter paramedic being injured lifting one of these larger patients in recent memory?
There have been some back injuries from lifting, but I don't think that they were necessarily somebody you would consider a bariatric patient. Because we looked into that, we thought, I mean, is somebody trying to lift too much without calling for help? And that was not the case. We didn't find that in any of the back injury cases so far. That was not the case. They didn't. It was just one of those things where, they just turned a way that didn't go with their body that day. But again, this automatic lift system, it's literally pushing a button. If you wheel them, use gravity to wheel them where they need to go and push a button, the legs retract without any effort, and you can literally push it in with one hand, no matter what the weight is on the cot.
Mr. Rath?
Two questions, one for the chair. Do we have a motion? Yeah?
No, we don't.
Okay. And I'll make a motion while we're at it.
Second.
Okay.
And then my second question is, whether we get a bariatric unit or not, are you in need of another unit?
Yes, we are.
And it just makes sense at this point in time to make that a bariatric unit?
It does. It's filling
Go ahead, I still have the floor.
Okay.
Answer my question.
Yes. Yes, we do. We are in a spot where we've got Medic 1 we just purchased last year. That's only got a couple thousand miles. Medic 2 and Medic 3, which would be the north end and the west end, were both purchased in 2012. One has about 50,000 miles on it. That's the west end. The one up north has about 80,000 miles on it. It would make a great truck to have in reserve because the two that we have in reserve, I believe our maintenance costs are going to be over what they're worth this year. We're trying to cobble things together to keep, when we have to take one of those other ones to have it repaired or even serviced, we're having to spend too much money trying to keep vehicles that don't have much value in service. We'd be better off spending on a lease payment. And then the fourth Medic we have is at 100,000 miles. So yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering how soon, I think you addressed it, but how soon
Director Rhodes
would it
did,
be
but-
operational? How soon do we get that?
Roughly, we're a little bit ahead of the game, but typically they take 6 to 7 months. But we've Director Rhodes and I have been talking about this for a while and got the manufacturer on board. So but typically it takes 6 months. We could get lucky and it'll be in service a little bit sooner.
Thank
Are there any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience?
Union Street, I do have one comment about that. Every time I hear run, go right over, every time I get a year run, go on my board from the counter, they call for Medic 1 or another medic. I usually see Medic 1 come out. Usually when Medic 1's there by themselves, they usually give it away again. I just sit there, the standard question why I've not got a pediatric unit. And that makes really hard on Station 1. I've been seeing more squad calls out to there in your neighborhood. And I think Pine Chief knows that. And I think pediatric unit would be more suitable, ideal emergency vehicle, takes some stress off, and I see more pediatric units around Station 1, Station 3, Station 2, and Station 4. That's my concern. I usually hear more squad calls than I do hear fire calls. I usually get more squad calls.
You are correct.
So that makes it even harder.
I have a question. So you probably need another medic unit on top of this relatively soon, right?
Yes, but not immediately.
Not immediately. Mr. Rhodes, you said that there was 2 medics that were coming off.
That's correct.
And
There's
then,
2 medics that have coming off.
Do you know how much that totals?
$77,000 a year. That's what it comes off. But per the legislation, the dollars that are created by the EMS legislation stay in a certain account. So if we accrue some extra dollars in there, then the next time we go, we just borrow a little bit less and take some money out of there. The perfect scenario would be able, over time, to put ourselves in a position where we could just pay for these. We're not even remotely close to that at that point. But we do work very, very, very well with local lenders on this lease purchase thing and get very favorable rates.
And we're going to look into next year possibly buying another medic unit, or?
If the levy passes, absolutely. If not, no.
Okay.
Any other questions from the committee, of the audience? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Second is Resolution 1678, appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. What this is, of course, you're all familiar with the 85-15 split on capital improvements. This year we did a 90-10 split. At this point, I have $17,138.58 left. I'd like to have that appropriated. There's some things around the city grounds that need to be brushed up and made a little better, and I wanted to encumber these dollars.
Questions from the committee?
I'm sorry, $17,000 seems like an awful lot of money to brush up some things.
One area of flooring was just one area of flooring is over $4,000. We've got grounds, and let me explain what grounds is. It's just not carpeting. It's just not trimming of shrubs. It's not grass seed. It can be things like putting it towards the air handler system. The air handler system in this building is old. It's antiquated and needs to be redone. I'm not saying we want to use that towards it, but it could be put towards that. It could be put towards buying light bulbs and changing out ballasts that are burning sodium lights, and we could put LED lights in. There's all kinds of things. And when we say grounds and maintenance, it's just not the city hall building we're talking about. It gives them use at the police station, the fire station, the service complex, and other places like that. If you want to put a slash on there and use part of that for paving too, you're more than welcome to. What I'm trying to do simply here is encumber the dollars. We do not have these spent at this second, but I'm just trying to encumber. And it's we're going to be in September, and by the time it goes to a couple of readings of council, we're into October and November. That's why I'm asking you to begin that process now.
And that's the end of...
That's the end of the capital improvement dollars.
And the end of what will go in there.
Yeah, for 2016.
Before we continue discussion, may I have the motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Frazier, second by Hall. All right, you may continue.
So that, Jeff, to answer your question, that's the end of them this year. We came in immediately when we had some dollars, and we asked you to appropriate, I think initially $80,000 for paving. We came back and we asked to take a little bit of money out of budget stabilization, another $300,000 for paving, and then we keep these dollars around for emergency too. If an air conditioner unit goes out, we had an air conditioner unit that went out not too long ago that cools the servers, in the server room, and you have to have those dollars available. That's why we do that. Today I got a call at the Hollander pool. The valve didn't open in the pool, so Roger's going to be nice enough to go up and help us drain it, but then we got to get into that valve system in the pool. That could be considered grounds and maintenance too, and I don't know what we're looking at there. But again, I just wanted to start this process here in the end of August, because it'll go through 2 readings of council, and that'll put me into October, which then I've got 10 weeks left of the remainder of the year. But once it's encumbered, if I don't spend it, I can still hold it and use it for the following.
Other discussion, Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Rhodes, what's the top 3 projects you're looking to use this for?
I'm going to use it in part for carpeting, in part for the parks, and in part for other buildings.
Okay. And then if there's an emergency that pops up, something breaks, we can still use
it for that. And as we begin to hold on to these dollars, when I say hold on to them, as we come to the end of the year, we really won't spend all these by the end of the year. We'll hold them back for a just-in-case moment, an air conditioner going out, something along those lines.
And I take it that $17,000 worth of paving won't get me very much paving.
Yeah, wouldn't even get your alley paved back by the North Park.
I was hoping, but
yeah,
I guess.
I know you've been sure.
Yes, we could do land improvements.
Yeah. So.
Other discussion from the audience? No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that concludes our business of capital improvements. Thank you all.
Okay, it's 6:23. We'll call this Personnel Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Ryan Bubb, Doug Marmee, Curtis Johnson, Alex Roletta, and Dee Hall. The purpose of tonight's discussion is Ordinance 16-34. An ordinance amending the position classification, pay range, and position authorization tables of the Department of Public Service, Division of Traffic, and Division of Street Maintenance by creating one additional classification of Streets Traffic Operations Manager. Service Director David Rhodes is here to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple years ago, we came in and realigned the Street and Traffic Department. We actually eliminated the position I'm proposing to create tonight. At that time, that position paid, I believe, $62,000 a year, and we wanted to give a new model a new try. After a couple years of looking at the new model, there was a real void there for another management position, although I don't believe the level of the management position there is $62,000 a year. That's why we've put the salary in there at $47,000. Still a little bit of savings, but with the amount of work we have going on in the street and the traffic department, and we've got some pending legislation with street and traffic technicians. We're going to be adding those 2 employees. We just feel this position is needed. Now, in this legislation, it does not fund this position. Funding would come at a later date, maybe next year's budget as we look at it. This does nothing more than create the position. It does not fund it, so obviously we will not be running out to hire somebody. If we find that at the end of this year we have some dollars we could appropriate to that, I'll have to come back to the Finance Committee and ask them to appropriate this.
Okay, thank you. I will open it up to any members of the committee with questions or comments regarding this ordinance. Does anyone on the committee have anything? Anyone from the audience?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, have a motion on the floor by Doug Marmee, second by Curtis Johnson. Does anyone have any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion will pass 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
That will stand adjourned.